Hey guys, Stealth here. Today I'm looking at one of the new maps that I just recently played at with X2, Spec96 and Mike. This map is called Snakepit, and there are two versions of this map. One is Snakepit and the orientation is like this. The other one, I believe, is Crossroads, where the orientation is like this. So you have a slightly different setup of the map, but the map itself is the same. Of course, if you rotate it 90 degrees and redistribute the command zones, you're going to have a completely different experience. Now, it's Conquest, so we're going to have to go to 500 points. And we were discussing who is going to go where. The enemy team is doing that quite a bit faster than we are. You can see they already put up some attack markers here and there. So actually, let's switch it back to what we can see. Now, it was the first time for me that I was operating on this map. And I can tell you, the map itself is pretty good. There is a lot of room for maneuvering. Of course, due to the sheer size of the thing, you're going to have to. But what we also found was that the lines of sight were tough. Let's say tough. Because with all the dips and trenches and changes in the terrain, recon, and especially recon infantry, is harder to use. Recon infantry in here, for example, cannot see what's going on top of the hill, and pretty much vice versa as well. Whereas if you have some sort of recon infantry here, and it gets spotted, it instantly gets wiped out from this position over here, and you're going to see that happen. The deck that I'm using today, or at least in this match, is my Blue Dragons General deck. So I have access to a lot of fast-moving vehicles, quite a few different recon vehicles, and you're going to see me test out multiple of those. Now let's speed this up till we have the deployment. I'm starting out with a medium-heavy assault group. Going in, whoops, not too fast guys, a command vehicle. I got a Kiyomaru Shiki 170 point battle tank. A couple of transports, a KM900 with infantry, or with AA infantry. A couple of KM900s with base infantry, and my objective really is to try and reach the position over here. This town over on the left, I'm going to try and get my forces in there, as well as trying to rush across the other side so I can drop off my infantry somewhere here. But the cover that I have here is not very good. Towards the right side I have Spec96 backing me up. And further to the right we're going to have two armored groups operating together. That's Xju and Mike, so there's a lot of heavy tanks pushing this way. And between the two of them they had so much armor that it was really hard to stop them. Now you can see my first command vehicle moving into position. My other command vehicle is holding Gulf. So we're currently already at a +1. Jumping to a +2 already. That's because we already captured Delta as well, with Spec CV. Meanwhile, my vehicles are steadily moving along. I decided to stop my Hachi Nanashiki Recon over here, so that from this position it has a pretty good dominating view of the surrounding area. Of course, that does require the enemy to actually come out and play, which they didn't seem too happy to do. The rest of my forces over here to the left is moving up, and over to the right the rest of my infantry is trying to rush across this road, because the moment that you are actually over here, let's say in this dip, the enemy that's over here can no longer shoot you. So you can really use this as, I'm not going to say an exploit, but a terrain feature that's going to work really well if you can get there fast enough. Now at the same time, my Hachi Kiyoshikis, these are not these are not motorized, these are mechanized vehicles. They were getting engaged by a T-55 AM2 Merida. Immediately offload my infantry, but it's not really going to end well for this group. You can see my AFVs trying to get off missile fire. They do manage to damage the tank, but in the meanwhile they get a lot of fire poured into them. There's a lot of autocannons here. Sorry, one autocannon, a bit of infantry. That was just a bit too much for me. So pushing in with my recon vehicles, pushing in with my main battle tank, and I'm just seeing what I can find here. Of course, having my recon this close together is not really a good idea. But you can see just how close I have to get to this vehicle before I detect it. And we're not talking any kind of vehicle with high stealth. This is a scratchjet. This is just your standard infantry transport. But even that, they have a really big difficulty detecting and then killing. A bunch of VDV-90 gets destroyed here. And I'm not sure if they saw my approach. Let's see how much they can see. Yeah, they don't see me. This recon vehicle is being hindered by the dip in the terrain, which makes my vehicles completely undetectable. Over here they got a T-80UM, VDV-90 and a scratchjet, so none of these really have any good optics. This one has medium, so it should be able to see my forces. Still, nothing. They just don't know where I am. So if you have a map like this, having a recon helicopter overhead might work, because while they weren't seeing me, the same was happening the other way around. I could not see them. And I had 2 recon vehicles operating in this center, or in this sector. So trying to get good positions. Now one of my recon vehicles got killed off by the tank over there. So I thought, well, my Q Marishika should be able to kill that, right? Wrong. Gun elevation is pretty good. Gun elevation is not the problem. The dip in the terrain is the problem. So if you're playing this map, and pretty much regardless of where you are on the map, be very, very wary of the terrain features. Because those terrain features are really going to determine whether you can hit something or can't, and whether you can see something or not. I tried to bring in my gun tank in order to deal with the enemy gunship. Instead, ended up with my gun tank getting destroyed, my Q Marishika losing optics, and of course, because it lost optics, it couldn't fire. T-80UM, easy kill, managed to take it out. Now this tank is being spotted by the rangers from the other side of the, how shall we call it? Let's say the other side of the road. So you can spot like this, but other spotting opportunities were just unusual, let's say. See how they're doing on the other side of the map. They got an 086 Delta. They got a little bit of recon moving up to the right flank. Let's see how close the enemy is. They have Iglas over here. They got a bunch of recon, a few infantry units and nothing else. And it seems that with their recon they can spot absolutely everything from both XJU and Mike. And you can see they even put down a marker here, Pravda did. There's 2 players here. So they now know that there is 2 of us here, which means that they might send another player to help out with this flank. So that was a really good observation from them. We cannot see them. Having recon infantry in here might have helped. Over on the left, I'm putting some reinforcements in, a Nanion Shiki G, a Hachi Nanashiki. And over towards the middle, I don't really have anything, so I'm trying to get more stuff as soon as possible. And I decided to go with these things, Mitsubishi Ju-Mats. I don't really use ATGM Jeeps very often, especially not these cheap ones, but I decided to give it a go. They're only 15 points, they're nice and fast, they carry 4 missiles with a range of 26-25 meters. They have 17 armor penetration, which means that they're not really going to be enough to kill off an enemy tank, but they will be enough to kill off an enemy transport or 2, if they hit. Now the alternative is really a vehicle that's going to cost me 45 points for firing, I believe, the TOW 1 or the TOW 2, maybe the ITOW. And I gotta say, these things, they didn't disappoint. They were pretty good. Now, another interesting thing. We have Rangers over here in the dip from Spect. His M8 is trying to push across, and it's taking autocannon fire, but we can't see it. You would say that the Rangers from here have a decent spot at that hill. They should be able to see what's up there. Instead, nothing. But the moment that the AGS comes into the cover of this terrain, and I'm not talking cover that's going to conceal your vehicle, I'm talking cover that's going to make your vehicle impossible to hit at this angle, that's when he's safe. So this is really a very, I'm gonna say treacherous dip. You don't really know what it's gonna do. It's gonna take some learning in order to get that done. Now, my rangers, or Specs rangers, had to be very close before they saw the VDV. And of course the VDV have, I believe, good stealth. That recon vehicle they cannot even see. The recon vehicle was only 2 meters behind them. Didn't see it. Not a clue. So all of these lines of sight are very treacherous. You have to be really aware of what you can see, how far you can see, and pretty much how you can stretch these optics to where you need them to go. Mike was pushing up with his, I believe, Swedish armor deck here. Let's see how much of their forces are getting spotted. A lot of it. They can still see the Nanion Shikiji combo, they can see the Shirashis coming in, or Shirasagis, sorry. They can see the Storm Pioneer, they can see everything. In the middle, let's say towards Fox and Delta, they don't really have that much vision, or at least not as much as I'd expected. Other way around, we don't see shit. So what kind of recon do they have that we don't? They got SPW of 60 PBs, very good optics, but my Hachi Nanoshiki only has good optics, so that is probably the problem here. Very good optics is probably going to be the way to go here. Exceptional optics, if you can get them, would be even better, but of course it's risky. It's risky getting very good optics in there, or exceptional optics, because they are usually mounted on fragile vehicles, or you're dealing with a helicopter, which could get pretty easily shot down. You can see that at this angle the BMD-3 can somehow miraculously hit this vehicle, and that's because they're still on, let's say, the upper ground here. The moment that they move towards the dip, the BMD-3 is no longer a problem. Unfortunately, Spect had to offload his infantry a bit early, which means they're going to be in range of the autocannons pretty soon. Over towards the left, not a lot was going on. They had the town under their control and they were not doing anything else. Meanwhile, I'm gearing up for an assault. I got 3 K1s getting ready to fire. I got one Kiyoroku WAPC, one of those grenade launcher vehicles, with a bit of infantry inside, got a gun tank nearby, and with these forces as well as Spec's infantry, we can try to start pushing towards this position, especially since the T-80WM had died. So he's pushing across, and again he's taking autocannon fire. M8 AGS managed to get a kill, but not before he took a lot of damage. And of course, this amount of autocannon fire is a bit too much. Pushing up with my K1s. Now, motorized vehicles over here are really handy, because my tanks are pretty fast, they're 70 kph. The Kiyoroku is moving at 100. If you want to cross this dip, I would recommend having vehicles that are wheeled, not tracked, because tracked vehicles are just going to take a little longer. My Kiyoroku got destroyed. Some of my infantry units survived. I'm still pushing out with the tanks, but again, even though the unit is firing, I can barely see it. Now I can see it, but my tanks are in the dip. I cannot shoot at it. And this pretty much continued the entire game, where we were constantly playing this game of can you see me, can I shoot you? And this is something that you're really going to have to be wary of when you're playing a map like this. Make sure you know what kind of lines of sight you can expect, and that's pretty much the whole point of this video. Because the gameplay itself wasn't really that interesting. The lines of sight and the firing lines were pretty treacherous, and that is the point of showing you this footage, because you have to be really wary of, can I shoot this stuff, and if so, where do I need to be in order to hit it? And it's just a lot of trial and error. A bunch of VDV on the hill. Again, I only saw them when my tank got in range of them to fire at me. Unfortunately, I got hit by a Seria 30. My recon, of course, could have been better. I didn't send any kind of recon with these guys, which is a big mistake on my part. I decided to send in something that has exceptional optics, an OH Ninja. So far, it's not actually spotting anything, also because it is hovering way too low. I called it in and then I started micromanaging my tanks. Now, a little thing about calling these units in. When you call in your units, make sure you call them in behind your lines. I'm not pushing them immediately there. I'm not telling them to go there when they spawn. I'm telling them to go here. Because when they're going to arrive here, I don't know what the situation is going to be like. And what I have seen people do lately is just rush forces forward, start to micromanage something else on the other side of the map, and then forget that their infantry, their vehicles, their tanks, whatever is being wiped out over here. Big, big mistake. Don't be one of those players who do that. Now again, my tank, I thought it could be firing at the Tunguska here. I mean, they are on the same plane. There is no terrain dip in the way. But still, the terrain is not the only enemy that you have. There can also be tree lines that are blocking your line of sight. So as this Tunguska M was going to town on the small troopers that came out of these guys, that came out of the LVTP 7A1s, my tank still had difficulty actually killing off the Tunguska in there. A bit of skirmishing is going on here, and this is exactly the point. Because as we now have a little bit of a beachhead here, we can make sure that we have a CV, and then we're going to start gaining 1 point. And since it is Conquest, you really only need 1 point if you can keep it up consistently. Pulling back some of my forces, reinforcing with some Chugata cargos and some Nana Yonshiki Gs. OH1 Ninja. This one only really saw that one after this vehicle opened up. Now these only have medium stealth. These have exceptional optics. They should be seeing them a long time before they actually open up. So I'm pulling my ninja away. And of course it's going to stay lit for a little bit. But pushing into this guy is risky because there might be all sorts of infantry around. A tank is not really the best option. Infantry, maybe. All of these units can pretty easily be knocked out. So I'm still trying to find out which is the best combination of forces that would be useful to operate here. And what I found useful is a combination of infantry, a transport and a tank. A combination like this has grenade launchers to deal with infantry, it has infantry to deal with a tank, and it has a tank to deal with pretty much everything else. Of course, tank-on-tank warfare is still risky, so I'm not sending in very expensive tanks for risk of them being destroyed. But a K1 at 85 points, or an M1, or let's say maybe a base Leopard 2, Leopard 1A5, or no, actually not a Leopard 1A5. Leopard 1A5 doesn't have the armor. So let's say medium heavy tanks, those would be ideal in this situation. Unfortunately, I believe that was the Deagle that got shot down. Is that a Deagle? Yeah, that's Spec 96's Deagle that got shot down there. K1 pushing in, getting some shots here and there. I wanted to intercept these transports. Of course, I'm handling this tank all wrong. And instantly I got retaliation from mortar fire. Now, maybe you saw that transport move around here. At some point it just disappeared. Because of the terrain, we couldn't see it. I can see that SPW-80, and my tank is engaging it, but I just couldn't see these guys. And that is with medium optics from infantry, poor optics from a tank here. I just could not see it, while they were pretty much right in front of me. Bit of a counter-attack here. And this is what I mentioned initially when I was reviewing this map. These lines of sight and these attack positions can work both ways. See, for us it was pretty easy to push in. For them it was pretty easy to push back in again. Bunch of artillery fire coming in. I'm not really sure what they're going for, because I don't think I had anything there. No, I don't really have anything there. Longbow taking a lot of fire from Strop 2. Went down. unfortunately. Very expensive helicopter, would have been very useful. So right now we only have really one K1, one M1A1 Abrams, 8 ATs, and some infantry to hold this position. And that's really everything we got. Bombing run coming in, and you can see that they still have AA there. And this is really where we're going to start messing up with lines of sight. This is really when we're starting to struggle with this. M1A1 Abrams is trying to push forward. Unfortunately, this thing just ran out of fuel. So we got an M1A1 that's completely stuck here. I was bringing in some of my Chugata cargoes, but they were completely out of fuel, or out of supplies, resupplying everything that was close to them, including the ADATs. Of course, ADATs is pretty hungry for supplies. Trying to get some motor chutes in killed here. Of course, immediately take fire from the Mi-35 that's defending, let's just say hovering over this tree line. There's not really too much I can do about it. If I push up with my tank, I am going to immediately start taking fire from a T-72 Wilk, which is not really something I'm looking forward to, because I'm not sure if I'm going to get the first shot off. I'm going to assume that I will not be able to do that. Nanion Shiki G in position, K1 in position, and I gotta say, those Nanion Shiki Gs are always very, very nice to have. They may not look like much, but that grenade launcher on top of it, you can see it right there, is going to kill off enemy infantry very, very quickly. Whereas if you would do it with a normal tank, you would not really get that same amount of firepower. Bringing in some Shiosagis in order to resupply my Chugatas and then refuel that tank. Because the M1A1 is a pretty expensive tank, 120 points, and we were really, really looking forward to keeping this thing alive. But of course, a tank that's completely stuck is a very easy target. They kept doing some mortar fire here and there, not too much of it. And fortunately for me, they weren't really hitting anything, just shooting at this little bit of tree line. Of course, I forgot to disable my AA units, and my gun tank bites the dust. Unfortunately, the target went down very, very quickly. And there was not really that much we could do against that seed aircraft. I do have 2 Hawks in position here, not really doing anything. And of course, they're again firing at this position. I'm thinking that this might be a terrain feature. They might have been going for the iHawk, but maybe the mortars just cannot get that angle right. I'm not sure. We'd have to do further testing, or I'd have to contact these guys and ask why they were firing at this bush. Now, I don't believe they still have any recon here. They do have some on the left, but otherwise fine. Aside from that, my infantry is more or less in a position to cover this hill, but the moment I get on top of the hill, I get fired at. So I'm holding behind the hill, only right there to pretty much reinforce when I need to. Brought in an M18 Hellcat in order to get ready for any vehicles or infantry rushes that might come this way. Now, the M18 Hellcat, its autonomy at only 200 is rather terrible, but it does have a decent accuracy, a decent rate of fire, and for only 10 points, you can just field quite a few of these. I also deployed them over here on the left flank. Again, they're running out of fuel, and that's not really a problem. Any vehicle or infantry unit that's coming close, that's going to get detected by the Hachi Nanashiki and or the Chukyon Saz. It's going to get shot at by at least 2 M18s, maybe even 3. Unfortunately, there's nothing in range yet. At least not to spot, let alone to shoot at. T-80UM being brought in here, as well as a T-80U. You can see that some of the units that we have here are getting instantly spotted and then killed off. So much for my M18. The Abrams is getting slowly but steadily repaired and refueled from the Chugata, so I managed to put a little bit of fuel back into its tanks. At least it can start to move again. Bombing run comes in, destroys the heavy, but unfortunately we also lost the M1A1 there. Nanion Shiki G trying to defend itself against 2 T-72s. I get a decent shot on this T-72S. K1 takes a return shot. Nanayon Shikiji dies. And the last T-72, again, you thought I would be able to hit it, but you're wrong. I just cannot really get a reliable shot. And in order to get that shot, I had to back up to this hill to make sure my tank was going to be slightly higher, and then I could kill the tank. And this is constantly what you're going to be seeing throughout this map. Recce getting destroyed here. Still, Motorschützen on the hill. Motorschützen immediately wipes out the transport, and then we're going to have infantry on infantry warfare. I do have a KM-132 napalm vehicle close, but of course they cannot make an angle that's going to kill the infantry without hurting my own. This is when we start taking smirch fire. I lost an Ihawk, and my Kyoroku WAPC of course got destroyed on this hill. Now pushing up with the Mitsubishi Geomats, not the Chumat, the Geomat, to get some HGM positions here. Another K1's being brought in. Unfortunately the K1 already took damage from the cluster shot that we took there. Aside from that, more K1s are being brought in. M1A1 getting ready to fight. And again, we were just casually sitting at a +1, didn't really need to do anything. And apparently this is when Jungling decided, well, that's enough for me, and he quit. Now I was hoping that I could kill off that recon vehicle with this Geomat. Apparently not. For some reason, neither the Geomat nor the M8 AGS was able to get a shot at. So the one that took him out, I think, was this M8 AGS. T-72 M2 Moderna comes in from Sweaty Penguin. I think my HGM vehicles tried to land a hit on it. I'm not sure if they managed it. I don't think so, because they still have both of their missiles. Again, trying to get missile fire in. 45% accuracy though, leaves something to be desired. But I do manage to get a shot in, or at least it was going to hit until the M8 AGS took it out. K1 slugging it out with a BMP-1 PC. Of course, not really a problem there. The Moderna is in this dip. Now this is working two ways. It's keeping the Moderna safe, because he's casually in this terrain feature which allows him not to get shot at. Similarly, he's not actually doing anything, because he cannot shoot at anything either. Well, there's plenty of targets for them to fire at. I gotta say, this KM-132 did a very nice job killing off the infantry. I was very happy with the amount of damage that was able to put out here. But really only at a sharp diagonal angle up to that hill it was able to fire. Directly up, it just couldn't do anything. Spot another APC here, BMP-2. So pushing in with my Kyoroku and a K1 in order to get that vehicle out of my flank. Bunch of Motorschützen. Immediately takes a big hit on the K1. And then I forgot that I got the Kyoroku so close, but I didn't push it in. And of course that's killing him off. Still a transport there, infantry took it out, flank secure. A couple of T-72 S1s are coming in. My ATGMs are trying to hit them. I'm not sure if they're going to hit them, but these missiles, I gotta say, it was probably the first one I tried them. They are so bloody slow. They just take a very long time to get actually towards their target. Look at that. By the time the missiles were going to hit their target, the target's already dead. Moderna took a lot of damage, and I think eventually artillery killed it. At this point we start pushing. We have the M1A1 in the lead, K1's getting ready to push with them. This is when we spot a counter-offensive here. T-72 M1s, a Wilk, a couple of Kolosses, a T-72 S6, which is Tunguska. So I'm trying to push in as quickly as possible, and I really should have put this tank forward, my Kiyo Marushiki. Again, the M1A1 unable to fire at the T-72 M1s, and vice versa. Because terrain. Really always be looking towards this terrain, because it is gonna sell you out every turn. T-72 managed to kill off the M1A2, trying to get shots with my K1s into that tank. Managed to get a shot or two in. Optical failure, he's no longer firing. K1 took a lot of damage there, pulling him back. Again, even the HGM lost line of sight, and I managed to pull back the K1 to beyond their line of sight so that the missile would miss. Pushing forward with the Kiyomarushiki, of course, again, not having any adequate recon here. So what's going to happen is that the Kiyomarushiki tries to push forward, gets hit in the side with an HGM. So I immediately try to reorient it towards the biggest threat. It takes another hit, which didn't go through the armor. But of course, they are a heat missile, so they always do a little bit of damage. That's when I lose another 170 point tank. Bad play. Bad play. We just keep reinforcing the position here. I got another Kiyomarushiki in here. K1s need some fixing up before I'm going to send them back out. And considering we're actually capturing this position now, we were at a +2, so we're steadily but certainly winning this battle. Now over on the other flank, the guys were not making that much progress, or at least not as much as we were. We managed to push up across the road, they managed to push up pretty much around the town. And I believe this took quite a lot of fighting before they managed to uproot this position. But they're managing to push through, creating a lot more pressure on these guys so that they have now a 4v3 battle, of course. We're pushing with the two of us here, while they're pushing with the two of them there. Which means you're always going to have one player against you on some side. Now, my infantry engaged the T-72 as one. The moment they crested the hill again, they immediately lost line of sight. The T-72's lost line of sight, and I could easily engage the Motorschützen. Again, terrain features. Say it with me. T-55 AM2 Merida coming in. Getting shot at by my K1s. Getting shot at by the Jumats. Jumats, of course, by the time that they actually try and hit the target either pops back into the terrain dip or manages to get killed off already. That was an AT-ACMS strike. Killed off, I believe, the Tunguska, maybe a T-80 heavy, this one. And this is pretty much the point where we won the battle. A couple of tanks coming in from the flank, not really a problem. You see that I just have a lot of stuff here. I'm just not really moving it forward because I was happy with my +2. Aside from that, we did not really have a next stop. And the next stop, I mean anywhere to push next. Kilo is a long way away. Lima is a hard position to assault. If I would have wanted to assault, I would have had to go through a bunch of Motorschützen, a Moderna, a tank or two, Flakcoms, Nieuwe. They had a really nice position, I gotta give them that. This was a really good defensive position that they had. It would have taken quite a few forces in order for me to push through. Tom Scott surrenders and left the game. So that only leaves us with, I believe, Sweaty Penguin and Pravda. Pravda surrenders. We're pushing in, but Sweaty Penguin, as the last one, decided to surrender. So I was barely making positive here. I don't really mind that on the first try on this map, because right now I was just learning the terrain. What can I expect? What kind of terrain features are there? How are they going to work with me or against me? And I gotta say, this gameplay was pretty illuminating in the sense that I now know how to move across this terrain, what to expect, and to bring plenty of recon. It is a recon nightmare, as Spect put it. So, I hope that was helpful to you. If it was, please give it a like. If you have any questions about this map or about the terrain, either play it yourself, that's of course the best way to have a good experience with the map, or leave your questions down in the comments and I'll see how I can help you out. Aside from that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.